Hi guys, Dan here. Uh, Sorry, wait a minute. This is not a Dan TDM Minecraft video. What this is me apologizing to you guys because I am not with you today. Um, this is one of those days where my treatments in Cleveland got scheduled at noon, and there's no way I can work a half day in Toledo and be in Cleveland at noon, so I'm out for the whole day. It's also not a day we can totally waste. Because we are getting close to the point where you guys need to have eulogies into me right after Thanksgiving, or right before Thanksgiving. And so I need you to get started today on writing your eulogies. And if you're on Google Classroom, you'll notice that there are a few sample eulogies, like maybe 5 sample eulogies on Google Classroom. And I really encourage you to look at those because those are things your classmates have written in the past and have been really successful eulogies as part of this fallen hero assignment. So I want to give you today a 5-part recipe for creating a good fallen hero eulogy. And many of the things that I'm going to talk to you about here are things we've talked about in class, and you may want to write them down. So let me give Mr. Rossler the opportunity to hit the pause button when he needs to. And let me start. Number 1, create a timeline of everything you know. And I've been harping on you about this for weeks. Create a timeline of everything you know. If you really want to be able to tell his story start to finish, you darn well better know what the timeline is. So number 1, create a timeline of everything you know. Number 2, tell a brief version of his story. You only have 120 seconds. So I want you to figure out what are the most important parts of his story you need to be able to tell. What are the most important parts of the story that anybody should know? Something about where he was born, who his parents were, siblings he may have had, where he went to school, when he ended up joining, where he went, what his job was. Those are the really important things you want to hit. So part number 2, tell a brief version of his story. Part of that is not being afraid to admit what you don't know and admit what's lost to history. At this point, with the feedback I've given you, you know the things you don't know. For those of you who lost a guy in a training accident, you don't know a lot about your guy. You'll know something about his death, but there are lots of things you don't know about your guy. Don't be afraid to admit in the eulogy what you don't know and why. It's just as powerful to say, we don't know much about his service because he died in training and nobody cared. That's a powerful statement to be able to give in front of an audience. It's a powerful witness to be able to give. So number 1, create the timeline of everything you know. Number 2, tell a brief version of his story. Number 3, focus on the circumstances of his death if you know them. Be able to tell us where his unit was and what they were doing. The circumstances of death are almost always one of the most compelling things we have to tell. So you've got a guy who died in an accident. A couple of you have guys who died in training accidents back in the United States. You know a little bit about that. Explain what were they practicing? What were they doing? How did he die in that training accident? For those of you who lost guys in combat, we have gotten to the point with things I've sent you that almost all of you who had a combat loss, we know something about where his unit was the day he died, what they were doing, who they were fighting against. Number 3, focusing on the circumstances of death. Number 4, once you've done all those things, once you've created the timeline, told the brief story, focused on circumstances of death, number 4, write an introduction hook. One of the things you'll notice about all the sample eulogies we have is all of them have a really powerful introduction that sucks you in. Sometimes it's about the person delivering the eulogy. Like a person who goes to Scott and they say, I've walked up and down these halls a million times and never realized I was following the footsteps of ghosts. That's a powerful introductory hook. Other people have had something about their guy's childhood, like they know that he was a letter winner. They know that he was really involved in his school. They know that he was awarded a Silver Star or a DSC when he died. Those are powerful ways to start. One of the things I would say, if you follow baseball, no pitcher ever leads off with a 60-mile-an-hour breaking ball. You lead off with your heater. You lead off with your best pitch. Okay, so figure out what your best pitch is. Figure out what the most powerful part of the story you're going to tell is, and you lead off with that. You are trying to punch people in the gut from the minute you start talking, so go for that. So following again, create a timeline of everything you know, brief version of the story, circumstances of death, introductory hook. finally, the last part of our recipe for a good fallen hero eulogy, point number 5, tie the whole thing up with how you think he should be remembered. Okay? Should your guy be remembered as a great American hero? Should your guy be remembered as an average guy who did what he had to do? Should your guy be remembered as a father or as a husband or as a son, as a great Wade Indian, as a great Woodward polar bear? Only you can come up with that. Only you can come up with that, how he should be remembered part. Okay? Remember that these were ordinary guys. So that's kind of your 5-part recipe for a good fallen hero eulogy. I want to read you a couple of great, actually I'm just going to read you one really good eulogy, one of the best eulogies of all time that was given in 1986, January 1986. Some of you may have heard of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster when a space shuttle blew up in its launch sequence. It just left the launch pad. It was about a minute into flight, and it exploded above the Atlantic Ocean. And aboard was the first civilian we ever sent into space, a teacher named Krista McAuliffe. President Ronald Reagan, who was known as the great communicator, there were a lot of things President Reagan wasn't good at, but one of the things he was fabulous at was giving a great public address. And President Reagan gave this eulogy of the Challenger crew in the winter of '86 that is one of the great eulogies of all time. And I'm just going to read it to you. I'm sorry, I'm going to be looking kind of off camera as I read this, but here it goes. Today, the frontier is space and the boundaries of human knowledge. Sometimes when we reach for the stars, we fall short, but we must pick ourselves up again and press on despite the pain. Our nation is indeed fortunate that we can still draw on immense reservoirs of courage, character, and fortitude, that we are still blessed with heroes like those of the Space Shuttle Challenger. Dick Scobie knew that every launching of a space shuttle is a technological miracle, and he said, if something ever does go wrong, I hope that doesn't mean the end of the space shuttle program. Every family member I talked to specifically said we should continue the program, that is what their departed loved one would want above all else. We will not disappoint them. Today, we promise Dick Scobie and his crew that their dream lives on, that the future they worked so hard to build will become reality. The dedicated men and women of NASA have lost 7 members of their family. Still, they too must forge ahead, with a space program that is effective, safe, and efficient, but bold and committed. Man will continue his conquest of space, to reach out for new goals and ever greater achievements. That is the way we shall commemorate our 7 Challenger heroes. Dick, Mike, Judy, Elle, Ron, Greg, and Krista, your families and your country mourn your passing. We bid you goodbye. We will never forget you. For those who knew you well and loved you, the pain will be deep and enduring. A nation, too, will long feel the loss of her 7 sons and daughters, her 7 good friends. We can find consolation only in faith, for we know in our hearts that you who flew so high and so proud now make your home beyond the stars, safe in God's promise of eternal life. May God bless you all and give you comfort in this difficult time. I hope you guys heard those words, and I hope you felt those words more than anything else. That's a great eulogy. It's short, it's to the point. It talks about the memory. It talks about why we remember them. It talks about the sacrifice of the people left behind. And I think that's a really good starting point for you guys. You guys can Google that if you want. It's Reagan's Eulogy of Challenger Crew. It's considered one of your great presidential speeches of all time. Anyways, I'm not going to keep going on and wasting your time here. This is clocking in at about 10 minutes. I'd like you guys for the rest of the period, for the remaining half hour, 37 minutes, to get on the computers and start pounding out your eulogies. You've got no excuse. You're getting time in class to get this done. There's no excuse to be late with this or anything. I will look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, and have a great day.